Ever wondered why the city you live in, your favorite city, is the way it is? Why is it that our children cannot walk or cycle safely to their school or their neighborhood playground? Why is it that you often find garbage dumps on our streets or litter strewn in our neighborhoods? Why do millions of our fellow citizens continue to live in slums with poor access to water and sanitation? And why do we face heavy traffic every day on our streets and breathe polluted air? Even as India is making rapid strides towards human development, even as we send rockets to the moon and Mars, the quality of life in our cities is possibly worsening, leave alone improving. There are three key systems that need to be fixed for India's cities to deliver better quality of life. We need better planning, we need better local governments, and we need better state capacities, or more money and better qualified staff to manage our cities. These are complex reforms. They will not happen easily and in the short term. Yet, there may be one big idea that could cut through this complexity of governing India's cities and deliver to us faster results with respect to quality of life in India's cities. That big idea is a massive infusion of women's leadership into India's cities. One of the principal challenges underlying quality of life in India's cities is decisions are made by male politicians, male bureaucrats, and work is done by male planners, male engineers, male police, and so on, through a predominantly male-centric lens. So you end up getting many times a lot of infrastructure and services that you actually don't need. Flyovers, more and more roads, and at the same time overcrowded buses in some routes and underused buses in the other, while simultaneously you may not have running water in poor homes, you may not have street lights and walkable footpaths at the neighborhood level, you may not have childcare and elder care facilities, and so on. The reason we have these outcomes, these perverse outcomes, is because our democracy in cities is not representative enough. Women and girls constitute 50% of our population, but possibly, I would argue, represent a far greater share of lived realities, given their role in caregiving and other societal and familial responsibilities and perspectives. Therefore, if we give a greater share of leadership and decision-making to women in our cities, there's a high likelihood we will get significantly better outcomes in a relatively short period of time in our cities. Whether they are walkable neighborhoods where you're able to walk to your work or school or neighborhood health facilities, or they are better first-mile connectivity to public transport, or just better planned and convenient public transport that meets your daily needs, so you really don't need to have private transport, or whether it is availability and quality of childcare and elder care in your neighborhood, so you can exercise your full freedom of movement, or whether it is adequate number and quality of public toilets. These are the kind of outcomes that can potentially get delivered with greater representation for women in decision making. The big opportunity that India has in this is the following. India's parliament only has 15% women. India's state assemblies, where you have MLAs or members of legislative assembly, only have 9% women. But India's city councils or Nagar Sabhas, your governments of the city, have a staggering 46% representation of women. That indeed is the big opportunity before us. This accounts for more than 40,000 elected women leaders at the front line. They are the first mile elected representatives who make policies, who plan for the city, who decide on budgets, and so on. If we as citizens engage with these 40,000 plus elected women leaders in our constituencies, in our neighborhoods, if we collaborate and cooperate, if we support and strengthen their hands in translating what is their power and authority on paper into practical action on the ground, the results will be magical. Let me give you an example. It is likely that a woman elected councillor is better able to empathize with the need to saturate your neighborhood with childcare facilities for urban poor women, so you're able to balance the ability of the urban poor woman to work and earn, but without compromising on nutrition, care, and learning outcomes of their children. Who makes that decision? Who allocates budgets? Who speaks in the city council for a policy around childcare? Who finds out the land that is required for this? It is your city council. That really is the possibility in front of us. I believe that a leadership development program for these women councillors, think of it like an MBA or a master's program for these elected women councillors, could really be transformative. But these councillors don't work alone. They are political leaders who make decisions on policies and plans. Who executes them? You go to a government meeting in Mantralaya or in the BMC headquarters, or for that matter in a government office in any Indian city. You can count the women with one hand. And very often, the women in the room will not have a say in decision making, will not have a voice in decision making. Therefore, in addition to 46% representation of councillors, we really need to get a similar number of city planners, city designers, city commissioners, city engineers, city police, and so on. You need public officials who execute the mandate of the councillors, of the politicians, also to have women-friendly perspectives. Today, that number is woefully short. We need a massive infusion of women bureaucrats in our cities. Assume for a moment your councillor has decided on setting up childcare facilities or primary healthcare facilities. Who is going to draw, design, and execute them? It will be the bureaucrats. But who do you think will bear in mind the perspective of a lactating mother, a mother who comes to the primary healthcare facilities with other children, or a pregnant mother or a mother with baby in arms, or elderly people who visit and who need special facilities? What are the odds that a male contractor or a male engineer will bear these perspectives into mind? They clearly don't. If you don't believe me, please visit your nearest public facility when you go back. Having women's representation in the council and in the city bureaucracy is very important for economic growth and job creation in the city as well. Today, only 25% of women in India's cities access some kind of work. Imagine the possibility if you have a lot more women working for the city. If you have a larger number of women working for the city, you tend to plan, design, and govern the city for women, and therefore more women are able to work in the city. That not only addresses gender equality, but also addresses economic growth. A friend of mine said wisely that the discourse on gender equality that has to move from merely presence and participation to representation and leadership. Very often the optics of women working in a city, in a municipality, is that of Safai Karmacharis alone, or of women self-help groups. In addition to those, we also need women in leadership positions. with authority over policies, over planning for the city, over the budgets for the city, and so on. If we are able to reach this point, and we are tantalizingly close, given we already have such a large number of grassroots elected leaders, we can deliver better quality of life in India's cities. We can finally reimagine India's cities as places where women and girls are able to exercise their full potential and freedom, and so can each one of us. Women's leadership, therefore, can catalyze. Women's leadership is not an agenda for gender equality alone. It is a catalytic agenda that can address public health and sanitation, water supply, environment, economic growth, human development agenda itself. Most certainly, the challenges of India's cities. Let our credo, therefore, be women for cities and cities for women. Thank you.